Thanks for joining me for another Smart Poker Study newsletter exclusive. This is another unlisted YouTube video that only Smart Poker Study newsletter subscribers have access to as a thank you for being a subscriber. You know, I've learned a lot from Alex Fitzgerald and his various webinars over the years, and one that I found very beneficial was dissecting the donk bet. In that webinar, he breaks down donk betting every which way, why we do it, why opponents do it, how to fight back, and how to employ it properly. So today I want to discuss with you some things I learned from his webinar regarding making semi-bluff donk bets on our own, or for ourselves here. So you can see up at the top, this is that letter that I sent out earlier within the newsletter. These are things that I'm looking for when I'm donk semi-bluffing. And of course, semi-bluffing is when you've got some equity in the hand with draws, but you probably won't win at showdown unimproved. So you're better off knocking the opponent out of the hand now instead of hoping for a favorable turn or river card, So you can see this first one, fold to flop, cbet 60% or more. This means that he's leaning towards being a fit or fold player. So these guys are quite easy to knock off their hands. And if his pre-flop range doesn't hit the flop all that well, for example, maybe he has a 15% open range on a deuce 6-7 or a 10-7-3 flop. So we could take a look at that real quick. 15% right here, 10-7-3 rainbow. He only hits his flop 24% of the time with an open ender or top pair or better. What was that other hand that we had? Deuce 6-7. So on the 6-7, we can even make it suited right there. 37% of the time, he doesn't hit all that well, And one interesting thing, even ace-high flops, he doesn't hit all that often as well. He's got so many mid-pair and small pair hands. Sure, he hit a couple sets here, but that ace is going to scare this guy off of a ton of hands, so he does not hit it all that well. You can donk bet or even c-bet on a lot of these flops quite often, ace-high, and it scares the opponent away, So let's take a look here. For my hand, I want the draws in my hand and backdoor draws as well because this allows for lots of cards to barrel. So let's say we've got Jack 10 suited on an 8-9-3 rainbow board, and maybe, we of course have the open ender plus the backdoor flush draw that you can say, and there's a lot of turn cards that add to our equity, and it makes it easier for us to barrel. And barreling of course get your opponents to fold quite often, and these are often or with the additional outs, if he calls, we can still hit on the river and scoop a very big pot. So that's why I like to have all these different combo draws. Allows me to barrel when a lot of favorable turn cards hit. And next up, I have a lot of questions, or a few questions that I ask myself regarding donk betting before I do decide to donk bet. Question number one is my hand good enough to check call? And these are often top pair hands or second pair top kicker hands that you want to get to showdown with versus some opponents, This is often when you've got enough showdown value on the flop that your hand can win by the river. So we would often check call those hands. Is your hand good enough to check raise? So of course, these are often two pair hands or top pair, top kicker, two pair sets, flopping a straight, that kind of stuff. When you check raise, you're building the pot. So you want to build the pot for a reason, and normally that is for value. Check raising can be a good bluff, but you don't want to do that all the time. So you want to also check raise for value as well. And the third question is my hand bad enough to check fold? Now, these are often the check folding hands often have no value whatsoever, and staying in would just be a bad idea. It's like you have no pair, no draw, no backdoor draw. You're off suit with a 9-7 on an ace-king deuce board. What's the point in staying in with like that? So if the answer to all of these is no, then donk semi-bluffing is a good option. And so let's go ahead and take a look at one hand right here. So earlier I was taking a look at aces and how I played some aces hands. So let's go ahead and go to filters, exit out, and apply. Let's see, we want to look at flop opportunities where we chose, to make a donk bet on the flop. Not the check flop, just the donk bet on the flop. And then let's also look at some hand details, and we want it to go to showdown because we want to see what he had, what we had. We want to see the multiple streets right there. So if we add these to the filter, hand went to showdown, and I made a bet on the flop, which was a donk bet, so out of position bet. Save and apply filters. We've got lots of hands here. Just go ahead. Oh, we won a $7 pot right here at 25 NL. It's pretty decent, 28 BB pot. Let's take a look at it. So we face a min open from a 25-15, so a pretty taggish player, we could say. Small blind calls, very loose passive. Look at that guy, 74-4. Man, I'm so happy to be. Oh, look at that guy, 61-27. Now that is one lag player. He's a fun one to play against right there. Although I would prefer to be in position on him, but he's out of the hand, so we'll skip him. Now, we have Queen 4 suited. Now, of course, Queen 4 is not a great hand, but it does offer a lot of options when it comes to the flop, you know? And flopping some killer draws with a hand like this is great to stay in with. We only need 17% equity, and just about any two cards has that against your razors, you know what I mean? So we've got to call that right there. And the flop comes ace, king, 4. He checks, so we're first to act. Now we have to decide, do we want to donk bet or not? So the first thing, taking a look at their fold to cbets. Well, this guy's so passive. He'll call with anything. I'm not really concerned about him so much because we are in position as well. We can choose to build the pot on later streets, or we can choose to check behind this guy. So not so concerned right there. This guy folding 50% of the time, it's actually 2 out of 4. It's not a big sample. So, but he does only c-bet 29% of the time. So that tells us right there that he is a fit or fold player. This guy only bets 29% of the time. As we saw with those Flopzilla calculations earlier, the guy only hits, with a 15% range, he probably only hits the flop roughly 30% of the time. So he only bets when he hits. So he's a pretty fit or fold player on the flop right there, which is good news for us. He's flop honest. So now we've got those 3 questions that we always want to ask ourselves. The first one is our hand good enough to check call? Well, not really. Bottom pair with a backdoor flush, backdoor straight, it's not great. We don't want to check call and then check call on the turn as well because we have no fold equity. You know, by doing that, we're just relying on hitting our hand on future streets and basically going runner or hitting a turn 4 for a great hand. Even a turn queen isn't all that great. It does add some value. It allows us to check call down all the way with a turned 2 pair, but it's not great. So I'm not a fan of check calling here. Now, is our hand good enough to check raise? I would say no. We don't want to build the pot. We want to keep the pot as small as we can right now, because we just don't have anything that can win at showdown. You know, it's not worth it building the pot just yet. And is our hand bad enough to check fold? I would say that no. We have some really good backdoor equity with a pair, and if we hit 2 pair or trips, we can take a lot of money from this guy. So I'm saying it's not bad enough to check fold. We do have some equity. So the answer to all 3 questions was no. So let's go ahead and donk bet. We know that I donk bet here from that filter. Good. Donk bet 2/3 pot. He decides to call. Now, what does he call with here? He could be an unbeliever and call with underpairs, queens, jacks, and 10s, that kind of stuff. He could call with random aces. I mean, this guy could be opening with ace 5 suited, ace 9 off, ace 10 off, stuff like that. So could call with a lot of aces. And he could be calling with kings or even some gut shots. You know, queen jack would call here, as would a king 10, you know, stuff like that as well. So before that turn card, let's see, we are hoping for, because we want to double barrel here on favorable cards, we're hoping, of course, for any spade, which gives us the flush draw. We want a 4, which would give us a killer hand with trips. A queen would give us 2 pair, which we could barrel that as well. And a jack or a 10 adds to our straight draw. So we're looking for a jack, a 10, a queen, a 4, or a spade. We have 5 different types of cards that can really help us. So we have a lot of additional equity outs here. And we hit one of them, the 3 of spades. Now, I would have loved to have seen this be the jack or the 10 of spades, of course, which would add even more to our equity because now we'd only need 1 more card for a straight, along with 1 more card to a flush right now. So there's no reason to not double barrel this one right here. The double barreling gives us a good chance to just knock the opponent off the hand. With this 3 of spades, that probably doesn't help him much. Whatever he called with on the flop, the 3 of spades does not help, almost guaranteed. And so unless he had like a king 10 of spades, so he has second pair with a better flush draw, that's possible. 3 doesn't help much. So this double barreling is going to get most weaker hands to fold here and allow us to scoop that 350 pot, which is a great result. We want a bigger pot, of course, but I mean, you take what you can get, and if you can get a guy to fold when you have a crap hand, great. And he probably has a better one than us, you know. He can even have pocket jacks right here, which is better than our pair of 4s. So we decide to barrel. And he just gives us the call. That's great, because right now, if he decided to raise us, I would have to look at the pot odds to figure out, well, we've got really 9 solid outs plus 2 for the 4. So we have 11 solid outs. That's only 22% to hit on the river. So depending on the size of his bet, we'd have to judge the pot odds that he's offering us before we decide to call. But he takes it easy on us and just calls, which is great. And we, of course, knew from the filtering that we're going to win this pot. So that's good to know ahead of time. But we hit that river spade right there. We've got the second nut flush. We're really not scared of anything. He could have been kind of slow playing and just keeping the pot small with a king high flush draw. It's always possible. But if he had that, as soon as we decide to make this bet right here, we would find out right away from the size of his raise. He'd probably raise it to $10 or so, maybe just a min raise to get us to re-raise on him. But he'd probably make it a little bit bigger, 10 or 11 bucks, maybe not a full 3x, but a little bit over 2x to, try to get some value from us. So he just decides to call, and this is great. He is not going to put us on. I really doubt he would put us on a flush right here. And that's one of the benefits for donking and then barreling when you've got the backdoor draws, because they're just not going to put you on that. I guarantee he thinks we have a king that we're trying to bluff him off, or he thinks that we have, I don't know, pocket sevens or eights that we're trying to push him off of his hand, or he might even put us on a weaker ace for that bet right there. And a few of the weaker aces, like ace 4, 3, 6, they have 2 pair on him. If he does have an ace, if he has a king, yeah, he's probably just not believing us and giving us the call. He could have had a weird flush himself or something. But, I've got to say we have the best hand here, especially if he didn't raise. If he has better than us, he's raising guaranteed. There's no reason not to. The only hand better than us is a king high flush, so he would be raising. We know we've got the guy beat. And, oh, he had ace queen. Okay, top pair with a really good kicker. So he made an understandable bet on the flop. He made an understandable bet pre-flop. On the flop, he might have just been, I don't know, he might just be kind of a cautious player. He's a fit or fold player. Ace-queen isn't that strong of a hand. We could have called with an ace-king, so he just wanted to keep the pot small and get to the river right there. It was just an unfavorable turn and river card for him. But all we're betting just got some extra value right there. We continued on the turn with that extra flush draw, so things went really well. I'm really happy with the results of that hand, and you can see why it's a good idea to donk when the answer to those 3 questions is no, and when you have a lot of turn equity, or when a lot of cards can come on the turn that add to your hand's equity. So, that's how we think about flop, donk, semi-bluffing opportunities. I hope that you all got something out of it so that you can take it into your next session. And make sure you take a note of what your opponents donk the flops with when you see it at showdown. So this guy just now saw us donk and then triple barrel the queen 4 suited. So he should, realistically, he should make a note. Whoops, let's just say this was him. Pull this over here. He should make a note on us, something like Donk's flop with, I don't know, what could we say? Backdoor straight draw plus a backdoor flush draw plus a bottom pair, Maybe in the future he sees us donk with sets, Donk's flop with backdoor straight draw, flop with sets, flop with 2 pair. So eventually, once he sees our hand, he should be taking notes on it. It'll allow him to get a better understanding of us over time, So that's one of the things that he should be making. So as you're making these donk bets and you see opponents make donk bets, if you get to showdown, make sure you take a note of what they had so that, help you better range them and read them in the future. Alrighty, well, thank you very much, everybody, for watching, and send me any questions or comments to sky@smartpokerstudy.com. I really appreciate it. Take care.